This video disc is a part of the IBM Wheelwriter 5 typewriter training package. Consult your student guide to ensure that you have all the necessary training materials to complete this course before proceeding. This is the IBM Wheelwriter typewriter. The IBM Wheelwriter typewriter is a highly electronic machine which uses fewer mechanical parts than previous IBM typewriters. Because of this, there are very few adjustments to make in this machine. This typewriter uses a 96-character print wheel to accomplish printing. Multiple type styles and pitches are available. Notice there are no platen knobs on this machine. Paper is inserted semi-automatically. The IBM Wheelwriter typewriter comes in two models, the IBM Wheelwriter 3, shown here, and the IBM Wheelwriter 5. Both models have these features in common: automatic centering of text on the page, automatic underline, automatic error correction, semi-automatic paper insertion, referred to as SAPI, electronic paper feed control. The print wheels are changeable to allow for various styles and pitches. Pitch is automatically selected when a print wheel is installed. The caps feature allows capitalization of alphabetic characters while leaving numbers and punctuation in lowercase. Line space settings include single, space and a half, double, and triple space. Impression is controlled in three ways: character size, type style, and operator preference. Notice that the IBM Wheelwriter 5 has 10 function key buttons and the IBM Wheelwriter 3 has only 5. The IBM Wheelwriter 5 has these additional features: automatic carrier return, phrase storage, and playback allows the operator to store phrases and play them back as desired. Battery backup will save stored text, tabs, and margin settings when power to the machine is turned off. Tab indent allows the operator to set a temporary left margin. Decimal tabulation is used to align columns of numbers. Relocate will position the carrier at the last typing position after a correction. Subscript and superscript are used to type a character below or above the normal writing line. Backspace 1 will move the carrier back 1 unit of space. The Wheelwriter 5 also has proportional spacing. The machine type, plant code, and serial number can be located by opening the top cover, moving the carrier to the right, and looking at the left side of the bottom cover. This concludes the video introduction. As you have seen, this machine has many operator features. We will discuss these features in more detail later in your training. This section will cover operator tasks such as loading the print wheel and the ribbon and correction tape cartridges. The 0 next to the on-off switch indicates the off position. The 1 indicates the on position. To turn the machine on, push the on-off switch to the rear. When the power is turned on, the machine goes through a power-on reset, which is a self-check procedure that resets the electronics in preparation for typing. This machine has a semi-automatic paper insertion feature. Paper bale load lever all the way forward. When the semi-automatic paper insertion activates, the machine will position the paper so the first writing line is 1 inch below the top edge of the paper. To remove the print wheel, pull back on the print hammer and lift the print wheel straight up. Print wheels come in 4 different pitches: 10, 12, 15, and proportional spacing. The print wheels also come in a variety of type styles. Pitch, type style, and reorder number information is located on the upper right corner of the print wheel. When the print wheel is in its home position, the wheel is detented in its case so that the character pedal with the pointed top is straight up. To install a print wheel in the machine, pull the print hammer back, place the print wheel in the machine with the IBM logo facing you. When the print wheel is in place, then allow the print hammer to return to its normal position. To remove the ribbon and correction cartridges, open the top cover and push the ribbon latch to the rear. Lift the ribbon and correction cartridges out of the machine. To separate the ribbon and correction cartridges, push in the latch on the ribbon cartridge and slide the cartridges apart. To put the ribbon and correction cartridges back together, slide the locating lugs on the ribbon cartridge into the openings on the correction cartridge and snap the 2 cartridges together. The manual ribbon advance on the ribbon cartridge allows the operator to advance the ribbon by turning the dial clockwise. There is also a manual advance for the correction tape. The operator can advance the correction tape by turning the dial on the correction tape cartridge. To install the ribbon, place the tabs on the ribbon cartridge into the brackets on the ribbon plate. Lay the ribbon cartridge down and press on the right rear portion of the ribbon cartridge until the ribbon latch snaps over the ribbon cartridge. In this section, we will demonstrate the operator controls and features of the machine. We will start by seeing how to set margins, tabs, and line spacing. Before continuing, note the location of the following: the left margin key button, the right margin key button, the tab set key button, the tab clear key button, and the tab key button. In order to set the left margin, position the carrier at the point the margin is to be set, then press the left margin key button. To set the right margin, move the carrier to the point at which the margin is to be set, and press the right margin key button. During typing, the machine will beep once as the carrier approaches the right margin. This beep occurs 5 spaces to the left of the right margin. To set tabs, move the carrier to the position at which the tab is to be set and press the tab set key button. The operator may set as many tabs as desired in whatever pitch the machine is in at the time. Tabs can be set at any space on the margin scale. Pressing the tab key button will cause the carrier to move to the right until it reaches a set tab. If there are no tabs set between the carrier and the right margin, pressing the tab key button will cause the machine to beep once as the carrier moves to the right. There are 2 ways to clear tabs on this machine. To clear individual tabs, position the carrier at the tab to be cleared and press the tab clear key button. To clear all tabs at once, hold the tab clear key button down and press carrier return. The carrier can be in any position when this is done. The 4 lights across the bottom of the indicator panel indicate which line space setting the machine is set at. When the machine is turned on and completes power on reset, it is in the single space mode and the single space indicator is on. Pressing the line space key button causes the machine to go to the next higher line space setting until it reaches triple space. After triple space, the machine returns to the single space mode. The line space setting only affects the amount of paper feed during a carrier return operation. It does not affect the SAPI operation. Pressing the Paper Up key button will cause the paper to move 1/2 space up. Pressing the Paper Down key button will cause the paper to move down 1/2 space. Pressing the Micro Up key button moves the paper up 1/8 of a line space, and pressing the Micro Down moves the paper 1/8 of a line space down. This is the keyboard adjust lever. The keyboard angle increases as the keyboard adjust lever is pushed down and toward the rear of the machine. There are 3 positions to choose from. When the AC power is off, the battery pack will save the information in memory, including margins and tabs, for up to 1 year. It is important to use only AA size alkaline batteries in the battery pack. Power should be on whenever the battery pack is out of the machine to prevent memory loss. Let's take a moment to talk about the indicator panel. You should already be familiar with the 4 line space indicator LEDs on the bottom of the indicator panel. The other 4 indicators tell the operator when the shift lock is on, auto return is on, the machine is in the store mode, or the machine is in alternate language mode. Each of these indicators will be discussed when we talk about the functions they represent. The shift lock key button allows the operator to type all characters in uppercase without having to hold the shift key button down. Pressing the shift lock key button turns the shift lock indicator on. When the machine is in the shift lock mode, all characters type in uppercase. To exit shift lock, press and release either shift key button. This will turn off the shift lock indicator. Using the correction key button, the operator can correct approximately the last 200 characters and functions on the page. In order to correct an error, press and release the correction key button once for each character to be corrected. Because correction memory stores up to the last 200 characters typed, it is possible to erase more than 1 line of type using only the correction key button. When 1 line of type is erased, the carrier automatically positions itself at the end of the previous line where you can continue making corrections. If an error is found in previously typed text that is still within correction memory, the operator can move back and make the correction. After making a correction on a previous line, pressing the relocate key button will move the carrier to the last typing position it was in before the correction. Manual correction is for correcting characters outside of the correction memory. To perform a manual correction, position the carrier at the character to be corrected. Press the correction key button, then press the character key button for the character to be erased. Repeat this procedure for each character to be erased. There are 14 repeat key buttons on this machine. When a repeat key button is held down for more than 1/2 second, it goes into repeat operation and will continue typing until the key button is released. The backspace 1 is used to position the carrier for manual correction when typing with a proportional spacing print wheel. A backspace 1 operation is performed by holding down the code key button, then pressing the backspace key button. To manually correct in proportional spacing, use the backspace 1 to position the pointer on the print wheel just to the left of the incorrect character. Press the correction key button and then the incorrect character. Decimal tabulation allows the operator to easily align columns of numbers around a decimal point. To use decimal tabulation to align columns of numbers, you must set a tab for each column. Use the decimal tab key button to position the carrier. Typing numbers causes the carrier to backspace once for each number, but nothing prints on the paper. When a period is typed, the machine prints the numbers, then the period, and anything typed after the period. When using decimal tabulation, the decimal point lines up on the set tab. To turn on automatic carrier return, hold down the code key button and press the R. The coded R will turn on the auto return indicator. When auto return is on, there is an auto return zone which starts 5 spaces to the left of the right margin and goes to the right side frame. When a space follows a character in the auto return zone, the electronics changes the space into a carrier return. To turn the auto return feature off, press code plus R again. To turn automatic underline on, press code plus U. In automatic underline mode, all characters and spaces are underlined as you type. To turn automatic underline off, press code plus U again. To center text on a line, be sure the carrier is at the left margin. Then press code plus C. The carrier moves to the center point between the left and right margins. Then type the text to be centered. The centered text will print when you press Tab, Carrier Return, or code plus C again. To center text around a point other than the center of a line, position the carrier at the chosen point and press code plus C. Then type the text to be centered. To print the centered text, press Carrier Return, Tab, or code plus C. Tab indent allows the operator to type indented paragraphs without having to return the carrier, then tab for each line of the indented paragraph. The tab indent instruction is given by positioning the carrier at the point the indented text is to be typed, then pressing code plus tab. To turn tab indent off, press code plus carrier return. Impression is the impact with which the character hits the paper. Although the impression of each individual character is controlled by the electronics, the operator can increase the impression on all characters by pressing the code plus Q key buttons. This feature is used when greater impression is needed to complete a task. An example of this would be typing carbon copies or stencils. To return to the normal impression level, press code plus Q again. To enter caps feature, press the code plus N key buttons. In caps feature, all of the alphabetic characters will print in uppercase, while all of the other characters print in lowercase. To exit caps feature, press the code plus N key buttons again. The alternate keyboard feature is accessed by typing code plus X. For more information about the use of alternate keyboard, consult your operator's manual. The subscript and superscript features allow the operator to type a character 1/2 space below the writing line or 1/2 space above the writing line. A subscript is typed below the normal writing line. To do this, press the code plus H key buttons. Next, type the subscript character. The character will print 1/2 space below the normal writing line. A superscript is a character that is typed above the normal writing line. To type a superscript, press the code plus Y key buttons. Then type the desired character. The character will print 1/2 space above the normal writing line. Then the paper will move back to the normal writing line. US keyboards have 46 key buttons. Using upper and lower case, 92 of the 96 characters on the print wheel can be accessed. The characters printed in green on the key buttons shown here can be printed using the code key button. To type these characters, press code plus the character key button desired. To store text on this machine, press Store and type any number from 1 to 99. When the Store key button is released, the Store and Auto Carrier Return indicators turn on, and the carrier returns to the left margin. This indicates that the machine is ready to store text in the selected storage area. To take the machine out of store mode, press Store again. The store light will go out. To turn off Auto Carrier Return, press code plus R. To play stored text, press play and the number of the storage area the text is in. There are two ways to stop playback once it starts. The first is to press the play key button during playback. Playback is resumed by pressing the play key button again. Stored text can be played back one character at a time by holding the play key button down and pressing the space bar once for each character to be played back. Entering a stop code by pressing the code plus 9 while storing text is the second way to stop playback. This will cause the machine to stop during playback at the point the stop code was entered. This machine will automatically stop during playback at any point it finds a stop code in memory. To resume playback after stopping at a stop code, press play again. The delete key button is used to erase text from storage. Delete can be used in three ways. The first way is to delete all of the text in one storage area. To do this, press delete and the number of the storage area to be deleted. The second way is to delete all of the stored text at the same time. To do this, hold the code and shift key buttons down while pressing the delete key button. The third way to use delete is to delete a portion of a phrase after it has been stored. To do this, press Store plus the number of the storage area the text to be deleted is in. And then start playback of that area. Press play again to stop playback at the desired point, then press delete. This will delete the text stored beyond that point. This completes the operator controls portion of your training. For any questions about the operator controls, consult the operator's guide or the instruction cards on the back of the machine. In this section of the video disc, we will learn how to remove the machine covers and locate the various functional areas of the machine. To remove the covers from the machine, turn the machine off and unplug the line cord from the rear of the machine. Open the top cover and move the orange position indicator to the left. Locate the two front cover latches. Reach under the sides of the machine and push the latches in until they release. Locate the left rear latch and use a screwdriver or the pusher end of a spring hook to push the latch in until it unlatches. Locate the right rear latch and unlatch it the same as the left cover latch. Lift the cover off the machine. While we have the cover off the machine, let's take a closer look at the cover latches. These latches inside the top cover snap down over these latching surfaces on the bottom cover. Now let's see how the covers are installed on the machine. First, place the cover on the machine so that the cover latches line up with the latching surfaces on the bottom cover. Next, rotate the erase table up so that it will not get trapped behind the platen when installing the cover. Be careful not to trap the on-off switch inside the cover. Finally, press down on the top cover above each of the latches until all four latches snap into place. Let's take a closer look at the machine. The top cover, the ribbon, and the correction tape have been removed to make it easier to see the parts. All machine functions are initiated from the keyboard except semi-automatic paper insertion. The electronics of this machine are made up of three separate parts: the power supply, the function board, and the printer board. The power supply provides operating voltages to the function and printer boards. The main purpose of the function board is to interpret the input from the keyboard and send output to the printer board. All machine memory is located on the function board. The main purpose of the printer board is to provide drive to the stepper motors and the hammer solenoid. The stepper motors turn the platen, move the carrier, feed and lift the ribbon, and turn the print wheel. The printer board also interprets the signals it receives from the homing sensor in the carrier. Character selection and print selects the character to be printed and prints it on the paper. This is controlled by the printer board. The ribbon and correction mechanism is responsible for lifting and feeding the ribbon and correction tape. These operations are controlled by the printer board. The transport mechanism is responsible for the movement of the carrier in both directions. Transport is also controlled by the printer board. This is the paper feed area of the machine. All paper feed operations are controlled by the printer board. There are 5 stepper motors in this machine. They are the selection motor, the ribbon feed motor, the ribbon lift motor, the paper feed motor, and the transport motor. Let's take some time to discuss the operation of a stepper motor. Inside a stepper motor are a number of wire windings which surround the rotor. The rotor and the shaft turn as one unit. The motor is electronically driven by energizing one set of windings at a time, sequentially, in the direction the rotor is to turn. A stepper motor can be prevented from turning electronically. We call this the detent mode. This is done by keeping one set of windings energized. 3 of the stepper motors in the Wheelwriter 5 have detent modes. They are the selection motor, the transport motor, and the ribbon lift motor. Because of the electronic control, stepper motors are able to perform operations not possible with other types of motors. For example, a stepper motor can start, stop, and reverse direction extremely fast. The most important feature of the stepper motor is precise control of the amount of rotation. This completes the technical overview. In this section, we are going to discuss character selection and print and the ribbon and correction mechanism. Let's locate the parts involved in character selection and print. The ribbon, correction tape, and print wheel have been removed to make the parts easier to see. They are the selection motor, the print hammer solenoid, the hammer, the homing sensor, shown here out of the machine, the homing LED, and the selection motor hub. Let's see how the homing LED and homing sensor operate. The homing LED is mounted on the rear of the carrier frame and emits a light which is aimed directly at the homing sensor. This light is infrared and cannot be seen. The homing sensor reads the home position, the pitch, and the impression level of the print wheel by sensing the holes in the print wheel. Print wheel homing and the reading of the pitch and impression levels of the print wheel takes place during power on reset, and when the first character is typed after a print wheel change. The printer board does 5 things during POR that involve selection. The first thing the printer board does is to spin the selection motor to ensure that the selection motor hub is engaged with the print wheel. The second action of the printer board is to home the print wheel. The third and fourth actions are to electronically sense the pitch and impression level of the print wheel. Finally, the printer board lightly fires the hammer solenoid. When power on reset is complete, the print wheel is detented in the home position. The function board takes input from the keyboard or machine memory and sends output to the printer board. The printer board then selects the correct character and energizes the hammer solenoid. The hammer solenoid consists of a coil and a plunger. A magnetic field is created when voltage is applied to the coil. The magnetic field pulls the plunger into the coil and causes the other end of the plunger to drive the print hammer. The print hammer then moves to the rear and drives the character pedal against the ribbon and paper. The printer board controls the impression of the characters by varying the current applied to the hammer solenoid. In normal typing, the solenoid energizes once for each character. During correction, the solenoid energizes twice for each correction operation. This ensures that the entire character lifts off the paper during correction. Let's locate the parts involved in ribbon and correction. These are the ribbon feed motor, the ribbon lift motor, the ribbon lift cam, the correction tape feed ratchet, the correction tape drive link, the correction cam follower, and the correction feed arm. During POR, the printer board drives the ribbon lift motor through a complete lift cycle to ensure it is working correctly and that the lift cam will be in the home position before typing begins. When POR ends, the ribbon lift motor is held electrically detented by the printer board. If the lift cam is moved away from the home position, it will cause print problems. This may appear as partial characters or no print. To correct this, turn the machine off, then back on. The machine will re-home the ribbon lift cam during the POR. Once the ribbon lift cam re-homes, the print should be good again. Now let's see how ribbon lift and feed work. When a print operation starts, the ribbon lift cam is driven counterclockwise by the ribbon lift motor. The camming surface on the lift cam transfers motion through the ribbon cam follower to the ribbon plate. This motion lifts the ribbon into the print position. How far the ribbon lift motor drives the lift cam is controlled by the printer board. After a character prints, if there are no other characters to be printed, the lift motor drives the lift cam back to the home position. The ribbon feed motor feeds the ribbon immediately after the character prints. Pressing the correction key button causes the ribbon lift motor to drive the ribbon lift cam until the ribbon plate is high enough so that the correction tape is in front of the character pedals. The correction tape feeds as the ribbon plate is rising. When the camming surface in the correction feed arm moves against the correction feed cam follower, it provides motion to the correction feed ratchet through the drive link. The following parts are involved in transport: the transport motor bracket assembly, the transport belt, the transport idler pulley bracket, the homing flag, and the homing flag stop. The transport motor moves the carrier for tab, carrier return, space, backspace, typing, and correction. The amount of carrier movement for each character depends on the pitch of the print wheel. The printer board determines how far to move the carrier and then drives the transport motor the correct amount to complete the move. During POR, the transport motor moves the carrier to the left side frame, then back out to the left margin. The homing flag tells the printer board when the carrier reaches the left side frame. Let's see how this is done. When the carrier reaches the left side frame, the end of the flag hits the homing flag stop and causes the flag to move into the carrier. When the flag moves in, it passes in front of the homing sensor, blocking the light from the LED, telling the printer board the carrier is at the left side frame. Paper feed involves the following parts: the paper release lever, the paper bale load lever, the SAPI switch, the platen, the deflector, the paper feed roller assemblies, and the paper feed motor. There are three ways to initiate paper feed. The first is to use semi-automatic paper insertion. The second way is to press the carrier return key button. The third way is to use the paper move key buttons. Semi-automatic paper insertion is the only paper feed function which is not initiated from the keyboard. The semi-automatic paper insertion operation is activated by closing the SAPI switch shown here. The SAPI switch is connected to the function board by connector J6F, which is the SAPI connector. The SAPI switch consists of a reed switch and a magnet separated by the SAPI arm. A reed switch is a simple device consisting of a set of contacts sealed inside a glass envelope. As long as the SAPI arm is between the switch and the magnet, the switch contacts will not touch. Pulling the paper bale load lever moves the SAPI arm out from between the magnet and the reed switch, allowing the magnet to pull the contacts together and close the switch. When the SAPI switch closes, it completes a circuit through the connector on the function board. The function board then tells the printer board to perform the SAPI operation. Then the printer board drives the paper feed motor to feed paper into the machine. This completes paper feed. The keyboard has the following replaceable parts: the keyboard cover frue, the keyboard frue, and the indicator panel frue. The keyboard frue is made up of the base plate, the keyboard frame, the membrane switch assembly, and the character and function key buttons. The membrane switch assembly is made up of the sense line circuit membrane and the drive line circuit membrane, separated by an insulator. On the drive line circuit membrane, there is one contact point for each character and function key button on the keyboard. There are a total of 13 drive lines. Like the drive line circuit membrane, the sense line circuit membrane has one contact point for each character and function key button. There are 8 sense lines. This is connector J1F. This connector is where the 13 keyboard drive lines plug into the function board. This is connector J2F. This is where the 8 sense lines plug into the function board. Notice that you have 7 additional lines on the right. These are the keyboard ID lines. They will be discussed later. When a key button is at rest, the membrane switch is opened. When a key button is pressed, the contact point on the sense line presses against the contact point on the drive line, closing the switch. The function board, which supplies 5 volts DC to the sense lines, scans the drive lines 76 times a second, looking for a closed membrane switch. When the membrane switch closes, the 5 volts DC is applied from the sense line to the drive line. When the function board scans the drive line, it notes that the switch is closed and sends the appropriate instruction to the printer board. These are the keyboard ID lines. These lines are connected to pins 9 through 15 of the J2F connector on the function board. The electronics uses the ID lines to identify which keyboard is installed on the machine. The function board supplies 5 volts DC to pin 9 of the J2F connector and looks for the presence of 5 volts DC on pins 10 through 15. By changing the combination of pins on which the function board finds 5 volts DC, the keyboard ID is changed. This is accomplished by opening some of the ID lines by punching a hole in them. The ID holes are punched during manufacturing. This is the indicator panel. Let's see how it works. Each indicator is a light-emitting diode, or LED, which is turned on and off by the function board. The indicator panel plugs into the function board at the J5F connector. The function board supplies 5 volts DC to one side of each of the indicator LED circuits. In order to turn one of the indicator LEDs on, the function board applies ground to that LED circuit through the pin on the J5F connector assigned to that indicator circuit. This section covers carrier removal and replacement. Let's start by learning how to remove the carrier, the selection plate, and the homing flag. To remove the carrier, start by turning the machine off and removing the ribbon and tape cartridges and the print wheel. Next, disconnect the carrier cable from the J4P connector on the printer board and work the cable out from under the frame and the clips in the base of the machine. Next, roll the transport belt off the transport drive pulley. Do not crease the belt, as this will weaken it. Using a 1/4-inch open-end wrench on the right end of the carrier shaft, turn the shaft top to rear until it stops. Do not force the shaft beyond the stop. Slide the carrier shaft to the right until the left end clears the side frame. Lift the carrier up, and as you hold it, slide the shaft out of the carrier and lift the carrier out of the machine. To reinstall the carrier, set the carrier in the machine and slide the carrier cable under the machine frame. Work the cable under the clips in the base of the machine, then plug the carrier cable connector J4P into the printer board. Hold the carrier shaft so the end with the large flat is to the right. Then slide the shaft through the carrier from the right side. Next, push the carrier shaft into the right side frame and slide it through until it stops. Do not force the shaft beyond the stop. Then slide the left end of the carrier shaft into the left side frame. Move the shaft to the left until it stops. Using the 1/4-inch open-end wrench on the right end of the carrier shaft, turn the shaft top to front until it stops. Do not force the shaft beyond the stop. Now, install the transport belt. To remove the selection plate through, start by turning the machine off and removing the ribbon cartridge and print wheel. Next, unplug the print hammer solenoid connector from the carrier cable. Unhook the selection plate load spring from the left side of the carrier. Next, unhook the selection plate spring from the right side of the carrier. Remove the carrier turn it over and place it so the transport belt bracket rests on the front rail and the ribbon plate rests on the paper bail. Unplug the selection motor connector. Next, unplug the homing sensor connector from the bottom of the sensor bracket and pull the sensor connector cable out of the selection plate. Mark the position of the right-hand selection plate pivot eccentric by putting a pencil mark on the scribe mark that aligns with the carrier casting. Remove the right-hand selection plate pivot eccentric. Put a pencil line on the scribe mark on the left-hand selection plate pivot eccentric also. Remove the left selection plate pivot eccentric. Remember which eccentric is the right and which is the left. These are not interchangeable. The end of the homing flag sticks out through a hole in the left side of the carrier. Be careful not to damage the flag. Push the flag in and remove the selection plate through from the carrier. Let's examine the selection plate through while it is out of the machine. Note the position of the homing sensor. This is the homing flag. Notice how it passes in front of the sensor as it moves in. To remove the flag from the selection plate, use the blade of a screwdriver and carefully snap the flag out of its mounting. Now, work the flag out of its mounting bracket to the right. To reinstall the flag, slip the end of the flag into the homing sensor bracket. Then, snap the flag back into its mounting bracket. Next, use a spring hook to line up the top of the flag with the top of the homing sensor bracket and release the flag. This is the print hammer solenoid. Notice how it pushes the hammer when the plunger moves in. To reinstall the selection plate through, set it in the bottom of the carrier, being careful not to damage the flag. These are the selection plate pivot eccentrics. The right pivot eccentric has a narrower shoulder than the left pivot. Remember that these are not interchangeable. Install the right selection plate pivot eccentric. Align the pencil mark with the edge of the carrier casting and tighten the screw. Install the left selection plate pivot eccentric and align the pencil mark with the edge of the carrier casting. Again, tighten the screw. Now reconnect the homing sensor connector to the homing sensor on the bottom of the selection plate. Next, connect the selection motor connector. Now reinstall the carrier in the machine. Be sure to route cables so that none of the connectors hang out of the bottom of the carrier and the cables do not interfere with any moving parts. Next, connect the hammer solenoid connector. Reconnect the selection plate spring. Reconnect the selection plate load spring. Make sure all wires are away from the springs and that the print hammer solenoid is free to operate. This completes the carrier and selection plate removals. Let's see how to remove the ribbon plate. Start by removing the ribbon and correction tape cartridges. Next, disconnect the ribbon feed motor connector. Remove the ribbon plate load spring. And remove this C-clip. Slide the ribbon plate to the right and lift it from the machine. When removing the ribbon plate, be careful not to lose the cam follower roller shown here. To remove the ribbon lift cam, slide it to the right off of the shaft. To install the ribbon lift cam, turn the machine on, then engage the ribbon lift motor gear in the first tooth after the stop on the lift cam gear. To install the ribbon plate, check that the cam follower roller is in place on the stud, then place the ribbon plate on the carrier so the narrow areas on the ribbon plate shaft fit into the cutouts on the carrier frame as shown. Make sure the correction feed cam follower stud fits through the slot in the correction feed arm, then slide the ribbon plate to the left. Install the bowed C-clip with the bow to the right. Reconnect the ribbon feed motor connector. And finally, install the ribbon plate load spring. Let's see how to perform the ribbon lift adjustment. The machine must be turned on during this adjustment. Start by typing several underscores, then backspace until the underscores extend past the right side of the card holder. Next, remove the ribbon and correction cartridges. With the machine still on, turn the ribbon lift cam top to front until the hole in the cam is straight down. Next, hit micro down once. Loosen the adjusting screw lock nut. Lay the metal ruler along the right side of the ribbon plate so the end just touches the paper. Then, turn the ribbon lift adjusting screw until the end of the ruler lines up with the underscore on the paper. When the ruler lines up with the underscore, tighten the lock nut and POR the machine. Reinstall the ribbon and type several characters. Check that the characters type completely on the ribbon. This completes the ribbon plate removals and adjustment. Let's see how we remove the transport motor bracket. Start by removing the keyboard cover. The keyboard cover removal procedure will be discussed in detail later in your training. Next, disconnect the transport motor connector J2P from the printer board. Then, roll the transport belt off the drive pulley. Use a screwdriver to release the two front frame latches as shown. Hold the front of the frame assembly up so you can remove the two front transport motor bracket mounting screws as shown. Then remove the two right side transport motor bracket mounting screws. Move the transport motor bracket assembly to the rear and lift it out of the machine. The transport shaft tension spring in the transport motor bracket falls out easily. Make sure it is in place before installing the transport motor bracket in the machine. Then work the transport motor bracket into place and install the 4 transport motor bracket mounting screws, but do not tighten them all the way down. Hold the transport motor bracket down and to the front while you tighten the right side mounting screws. Now tighten the 2 front mounting screws and snap the frame into the mounting latches. Install the transport belt. Then, plug the transport motor connector J2P into the printer board and install the keyboard cover. Now let's see how the transport belt adjustment is performed. Start by turning the machine off and moving the carrier all the way to the right. Set the keyboard height to the lowest position. Next, loosen the idler pulley bracket mounting screws. Then slide the T-bender over the top of the transport belt at its center and rest the T-bender on the front shaft as shown. Place the spring scale on the T-bender 30 millimeters from the center of the front shaft. Apply 5 3/4 to 6 1/4 pounds of pressure on the T-bender at a 90-degree angle. Then turn the adjusting screw in or out so the bottom of the T-bender just touches the bottom transport belt. Finally, tighten the idler pulley bracket. This completes the transport belt adjustment. Let's look at the removal procedure for the paper feed motor frue. We start by turning the machine off and moving the carrier to the center of the machine. Remove the platen by squeezing the left and right platen latches and lift the platen out of the machine. Unplug the paper feed motor connector J3P. These are the two mounting screws for the paper feed motor frue. Remove the two paper feed motor frue mounting screws. The tension spring shown here loads the paper feed motor frue against the platen gear. This eliminates excessive motion to ensure precise paper feed. Remove the tension spring. Now, work the paper feed motor frue out of the machine. To install the paper feed motor frue, place it in the machine and install the two shouldered mounting screws. Make sure the shoulders of the mounting screws do not tighten down on the machine frame. The paper feed motor frue should move freely when both screws are tight. Install the tension spring on the paper feed motor frue. Reconnect the paper feed motor connector J3P to the printer board. Route the paper feed motor wires below the left paper feed assembly. Now, let's see how to remove the paper feed roller assembly. First, remove the deflector. To remove the right paper feed roller assembly, press down on the center of the paper feed roller assembly and rotate it top to front and lift it from the machine. The leaf spring on the paper feed roller assembly provides the pressure which the feed rolls exert on the platen. When replacing feed rolls, always replace both paper feed roller assemblies. To reinstall the paper feed roller assembly, place it in the machine so the slot in the left end of the assembly is aligned with the slot in the collar. Press on the middle of the assembly and rotate it top to rear until the arms on the bottom of the assembly come through the holes in the frame. Before installing the platen, be sure that the deflector is properly seated. To install the platen, set the platen in the machine with the gear to the left. Be sure the platen latches slide into the latching surfaces in the machine side frames. Push down on both ends of the platen to snap the platen latches into place. The paper bail arms snap onto their mounting studs and are held in place by these tabs. Anytime you remove the paper bail arms, you will have to replace them with new ones. The paper release lever is the same. If you remove it, you will have to replace it with a new one. Now let's see how we remove the keyboard cover, keyboard, and indicator panel from the machine. To remove the keyboard cover, move the keyboard adjust lever to the high position. Turn the machine off and position the carrier to the left. Unplug the indicator panel connector J5F from the function board. Push the keyboard cover latches to the rear until they unlatch. Tilt the rear of the keyboard cover to the front and remove the cover from the machine. Let's remove the indicator panel from the keyboard cover. The indicator panel snaps into the keyboard cover. To remove it, carefully squeeze one side of the plastic mounting bracket and push it through the top of the keyboard cover. Then push the other side of the indicator panel through the cover. To reinstall the indicator panel, set the panel in the keyboard cover and snap it into place. To remove the keyboard, start by moving the carrier to the right side frame. Disconnect the drive line connector J1F by grasping the printed circuit membrane just above the connector and gently pulling it straight up. Disconnect the sense line connector J2F from the function board. When servicing this machine, never place the keyboard cables on top of the front carrier shaft as shown here. Grease and dirt from the shaft will contaminate the contacts on the ends of the cables. There are ground wires at each end of the keyboard. Remove these ground wires from the keyboard. Be careful not to lose the lock nuts as you remove the screws. Tip the keyboard up until it is vertical. Using only your hands, carefully pry the keyboard out of the machine base and remove it from the machine. When changing keyboards, the plastic mounting brackets on both ends of the keyboard must be taken off the old keyboard and installed on the new one. Place the blade of a small screwdriver between the middle of the bracket and the keyboard base. Twist the screwdriver and push the mounting bracket off of the keyboard. Before we put the keyboard back in, let's take a look at how the keyboard adjusting lever works. The lever has 3 detent positions. This is the keyboard adjusting bail. As the keyboard adjust lever moves to the rear, the adjusting bail rotates to the rear. Notice that there is a high point at each end of the bail. The high points on the keyboard adjusting bail fit into these camming surfaces on the keyboard mounting brackets. To install the keyboard, position this hole over this mounting stud. Then set the right side of the keyboard over the right side mounting stud. Tip the keyboard and snap it into place. Then lay the keyboard down. Reconnect the keyboard ground wires. Reconnect the sense lines in connector J2F on the function board by pushing the printed circuit membrane into the connector. Be careful not to damage the printed circuit membrane. Next, reconnect the driveline circuit membrane into the J1F connector. There are 6 mounting tabs on the front edge of the keyboard cover. Slip the mounting tabs under the front edge of the keyboard and set the keyboard cover in place. Press down on the rear of the cover until it snaps into place. Plug the indicator panel connector into connector J5F on the function board. This concludes keyboard removals. In this section, we are going to examine the power on reset. When the machine is turned on, all of the lights on the indicator panel turn on, allowing you to see if all of the indicator LEDs are working. The next thing that happens is the selection motor drives the print wheel 6 pedals clockwise, then 6 pedals counterclockwise. This is called the printer processor test. Let's look at the printer processor test again in slow motion. After the printer processor test, the machine beeps once. Next, you will see the ribbon plate and the print wheel moving at the same time. We will show this sequence twice. The first time we will talk about the ribbon. The second time we will discuss the print wheel movement. The ribbon lift motor drives the ribbon plate to its highest lift position and back to home. This homes the ribbon lift motor and checks for an overcurrent condition of the lift motor. The machine also checks the ribbon feed motor by driving it long enough to feed the ribbon approximately 1 character. The ribbon feed motor is also being checked for an overcurrent condition. Now watch as we explain the sequence of movements of the print wheel. The print wheel makes 3 revolutions. The first rotation of the print wheel is to make sure the selection motor hub engages the print wheel. The second rotation homes the print wheel. Once the homing hole is detected, the print wheel is rotated back to the home position. The final rotation is to sense the pitch and impression holes. Next, the transport motor drives the carrier to the left side frame to check the transport motor for an overcurrent condition. Then the platen moves down slightly and back up. This checks the paper feed motor. Then the print hammer fires lightly once to check the hammer solenoid as the carrier moves out to the left margin. Finally, all the indicator panel lights turn off except for the single space light. Now that we have seen the individual steps of the power on reset, let's see what a complete POR looks like at normal speed. If an error code is displayed anytime during a POR, as shown, consult the error code diagnostic chart in your maintenance library. This concludes our discussion of power on reset. In this section, we will discuss some diagnostic procedures for power supply problems. First, let's see how we check the output voltages of the power supply. You start by turning the power off. The power supply provides 12 volts DC, minus 12 volts DC, and 34 volts DC. Unplug the power supply connector. To read these voltages, set the meter on the 60-volt DC scale, then turn the machine on. When taking power supply readings with the power supply connector J6P disconnected, you must use the power supply ground on pin 2 of the J6P connector. The reading from power supply ground to the plus 12-volt pin should read from 6 to 18 volts DC. To measure the minus 12-volt pin, reverse the leads to read negative voltage. You should read from minus 6 volts to minus 18 volts DC. To measure the voltage on the 34-volt pin on the power supply connector, reverse the leads again to read positive voltage. This pin should read from 20 to 47 volts DC. Caution: turn the machine off and wait 2 minutes before plugging the power supply connector into the printer board. This is to prevent damage to the printer board. When taking voltage readings on this machine, when the power supply connector is plugged in, you can connect the common meter lead to the machine frame or any of the ground wire connecting points shown here. There are 3 fuses in this machine. 2 of the fuses are on the rectifier board on the power supply. To get at these fuses, it is necessary to remove the power supply cover. To check a fuse, set your meter to measure 60 volts DC. Check for the same voltage on each side of the fuse. If the fuse is bad, you will read voltage on one side only. Always be sure the power has been off for at least 2 minutes before installing the power supply fuses. After checking the fuses, be sure to install the power supply cover. The third fuse is in the on-off switch through. In order to get at this fuse, the on-off switch through must be removed. To remove the on-off switch through, be sure the switch is off, then unplug the line cord from the back of the machine. Next, unplug the transformer connector. Remove the 3 on-off switch mounting screws. This is the inline fuse. You test this fuse by performing a continuity check. After checking the fuses and before turning the machine on, be sure all of the connectors are on tight and the power supply cover is in place. This concludes the power supply checks. In this section, we will discuss some of the diagnostic checks done on the printer board. First, let's locate the connectors on the printer board. This is the transport motor connector J2P. Note that there are 6 pins on the printer board. But there are 8 pins in the connector. The pin on each end of the connector is blocked so that the connector cannot be plugged in wrong. The connector plugs onto the board with the printing on the connector facing up. This is the paper feed motor connector J3P. Like the transport motor connector, this connector has a blank pin on each side. This is the carrier cable connector J4P. There are 22 pins in the carrier cable connector. The top row of pins is numbered left to right from 1 to 11. The bottom row is numbered from left to right, 12 to 22. The signal names for the pins are printed on the cable. All of the electronically driven components in the carrier are connected to the printer board through the carrier cable. This is the system cable connector J5P. The system cable connects the printer board to the function board. The system cable connector also has a blank pin at each side of the connector. To check a cable to see if it is bad, turn the machine off. Unplug one end of the cable, then check the continuity of each pin from one end of the cable to the other. Anytime you perform a continuity check of a cable, the power must be off and one end of the cable must be unplugged. This is the power supply connector J6P. This connector also has a blank pin on each side of the connector. Because of the time required for the 2 large capacitors in the power supply to discharge, it is necessary to wait for 2 minutes after turning the machine off before reconnecting the power supply connector. Not waiting for the capacitors to discharge can cause damage to the printer board. This is the sense pad. This pad is used to check for the correct operation of the homing sensor. Let's see how this is done. First, connect the common meter lead to frame ground. Then, turn the machine on and remove the transport belt to prevent the carrier from moving. With the meter set on the 12-volt DC scale, place the VOM meter lead on the sense pad on the printer board. When the homing sensor is not blocked, the meter should read from 3 to 5 volts DC. Press the homing flag in slowly. When the flag blocks the homing sensor, the meter should read from 0 to 1 volt DC. turn the machine off, and reinstall the transport belt. This is R603. It is a precision 5.1 ohm resistor. Because there are several critical resistance measurements to be made when diagnosing problems in this machine, you must zero your meter on the ×1 scale. Turn the machine off. Then test the accuracy of the ×1 scale by measuring the resistance of R603. Your meter must read between 4.7 and 5.4 ohms. If your meter does not read within this range, you will need to replace your meter. To perform the transport motor resistance check, turn the machine off, then unplug the transport motor connector J2P. Zero the meter on the ×1 scale, then check the resistance from pin EA plus to pin EA on the transport motor connector. The resistance must read from 4 to 6 ohms. The resistance reading should be in the same range for EC plus to EC and EB plus to EB. Next, check the resistance from each pin on the connector to the motor housing. There must be no continuity from the pins to the motor housing. This ensures that there is not a short in the motor. The selection motor resistance check is done through the carrier cable. The selection motor signal names printed on the carrier cable show that the selection motor pins are on the top row of the carrier cable connector. To perform the resistance check of the selection motor, unplug the carrier cable, zero your meter, and measure from pin 3, which is SA+, to pin 6, which is SA. The resistance must be from 4 to 6 ohms. Check the resistance from pin 4 to pin 7, then from pin 5 to pin 8. Next, check to be sure there is no continuity between the motor housing and the selection motor pins on the carrier cable. In order to perform the ribbon feed motor resistance check, you will plug one of your meter leads in the test connector on the motor and measure the resistance from the test connector to each of the feed motor pins on the bottom side of the carrier cable connector. The resistance check on the ribbon lift motor is performed the same way as the ribbon feed motor resistance check. Remember that both ribbon motors have their own test connectors. The resistance check for the paper feed motor is performed in the same way as the transport motor resistance check. The procedures for performing all of the motor resistance checks are in the maintenance library. This concludes the motor resistance check section. This section covers checks of some of the parts in the carrier. To check the hammer solenoid, you must perform a resistance check of the solenoid. You must first zero the meter and check the accuracy of the meter on resistor R603. Remember to turn power off. When you are sure your meter is good, measure the hammer solenoid resistance from pin 1 to pin 2 on the carrier cable connector J4P. The hammer solenoid must read from 2 to 4 ohms. Any reading higher than 4 ohms or lower than 2 ohms is bad. To check the homing LED, measure the resistance of the LED in both directions. Unplug the carrier cable. Using the ×1 k-ohm scale, put the common lead on pin 10 and the VOM lead on 9. The meter should show no continuity. Next, reverse the meter leads on the connector pins. Now the meter should read mid-range on the ohm scale. Whenever you do any work on the carrier, be sure all of the cable connectors are securely fastened and the cables are routed so they do not hang from the bottom of the carrier and do not interfere with any moving parts. In this section, we will discuss some diagnostic procedures for the keyboard and the indicator panel. To check a sense line, set your meter on the 12-volt DC scale and very gently probe the pin in the J2F connector for that sense line. The sense line should read from 4 to 6 volts DC. To check a drive line, probe the J1F connector pin for that drive line. When a key button that uses that drive line is pressed, the meter should read more than 1 volt DC and less than 1 volt DC when no key buttons are pressed. To check the keyboard ID lines, perform a continuity check from pin 9 of the J2F connector to pins 10 through 15. The meter should read less than 100 ohms on the ID lines that do not have holes punched in them. The function boards on later level machines will use zero insertion force or ZIF connectors for J1F and J2F. To remove a cable from a ZIF connector, pull up on the ends of the connector as shown, then lift the cable out of the connector. To install a cable, insert the cable into the connector, then slide the back of the connector down. This locks the cable in place and ensures a good electrical connection. These function boards will also have probe points for connectors J1F and J2F. When taking meter readings on these boards, use the probe points to prevent damage to the connectors. Now let's see how to check the LEDs on the indicator panel. This is the indicator panel connector. Like the connectors on the printer board, this connector has a blank pin on each side. To see if the LEDs on the indicator panel are good, short each of the pins for the LEDs to ground one at a time. To do this, connect one end of a meter lead to ground and touch the other end to the pins. Do not apply ground to the plus 5 volt pin on the connector because this will blow a fuse in the power supply. This concludes the keyboard check section. There are 3 optional features that may be installed on the Wheelwriter 5 typewriter. The display option allows the operator to correct errors before they are printed on the paper. The printer option allows the typewriter to be used as a high-quality printer. The spell check feature will cause the machine to beep when a word is misspelled or is not contained in the spell check dictionary or the supplemental dictionary. Let's see how the display option is used. The display allows the operator to view up to 24 characters of type. The mode switch allows the operator to to select one of 3 typewriter display modes of operation. The contrast control varies the intensity of the LCD characters. The display unit can be tipped front to rear according to the operator's preference. The fixed cursor located at character position 18 indicates the position where typed characters first appear. As a character is typed, it moves to the position immediately to the left of the cursor. The 6 character spaces to the right of the cursor allow text to be viewed during backspace operations. The 3 typewriter display modes of the display option are the typewriter mode, indicated by the +P, the delayed print mode, indicated by the bent arrow and the P, and the no print mode, indicated by the -P. In the typewriter mode, characters are displayed and printed as they are typed. In delayed print mode, characters are displayed as they are typed, but are not printed until the operator presses carrier return, tab, or a paper feed key button. When the machine is in the no print mode, the characters are displayed as they are typed, but are never printed. The no print mode is used for typing into memory when no printing is desired, or to check the contents of a storage area without printing. With the printer option installed, the typewriter can be operated in either the typewriter mode or the printer mode. The 4 key buttons shown here, the 5, 6, 7, and 8, control the 4 printer and paper handling functions. The optional features overlay provides labeling for the printer option functions. To put the machine into the printer mode, press code +5. The 1.5, 2, and 3 line space lights turn on, indicating the machine is ready to receive 1 line of type from the host computer. When the machine is in printer mode, the 1.5 light represents the option active mode. The 2 light is the online light, and the 3 light is the ready light. When the machine is online, it is ready to print text sent by the host computer. Printing can be stopped by pressing the 6 key button. This takes the printer offline and turns the online light off. Pressing the 6 key button again will put the machine back online, and the machine will start printing from the point at which it stopped. The 7 and 8 key buttons are used when working with continuous forms. For more information about form feed, consult the Printer Options section of the Typewriter Options Operating Instructions. To return the machine to typewriter mode, press the code +5. The spell check option is operated by the 1, 2, 3, and 4 numeric key buttons and the code key button. When the code +1 key button is pressed, the machine will make a chirp sound indicating to the operator that the machine is in the spell check mode. When in spell check mode, the chirp will sound anytime a word is misspelled or is not contained in the spell check dictionary or the supplemental dictionary. When a word is typed that is not in the dictionary, that word can be added to the supplemental dictionary by pressing code +2. A word may be removed from the supplemental dictionary by pressing code +3 after the word has been typed. The chirp will sound to verify that the word has been deleted. The tone of the spell check audible alarm will change each time the operator presses code +4. 3 AA size alkaline batteries maintain the supplemental dictionary and the tone setting when the machine is turned off. For reliability, the batteries must be replaced once a year. For more information about the use of the typewriter options, consult the operator instruction cards on the back of the machine and the Typewriter Options Operating Instructions book. Now let's see how the optional features are removed from and installed on the typewriter. We will start by removing the options cover from the machine. Start by unplugging the line cord and then removing the paper table. Next, open the Features Access door and unplug the options cable from the printer board. To remove the options cover, lift the bottom of the options cover up and away from the machine. To remove the spelling verification board, pull the two latches toward you. Lift the board, then pull the board forward and lift it off the rear posts. To remove the features adapter board, push back these two retainer clips and lift the board slightly. Then push the two mounting posts to release the top portion of the board. Then remove the board from the machine. To install the features adapter board, place the front edge of the board under the latches in the area marked 1. Then align the mounting holes in the top of the board with the mounting posts. Press down on the board until it latches under the retaining clips. To install the spelling verification board, which is board number 2 in the option cover, place it in the side marked 2. Align it so the mounting posts fit through the mounting holes in the board, then press down on each corner of the board to latch the board in place. Board 3 is installed in the area marked 3 using the same method to install board number 2. Remember that board 3 can be the display option, the printer option, or both. Be sure the two locking rings on the printer cable connector are not trapped inside the options cover. If the display option is being installed, plug the display connector into the board before installing the options cover on the machine. To install the option cover, place the bottom latches in these holes in the machine cover, then place the cover so the top latches fit into the vent holes in the top of the machine. Next, plug in the option cable, install the paper table, and finally plug the line cord into the machine. To install batteries for the spell check option, remove the battery cover. Insert the battery pack into the battery cover, then slide the battery cover into the options cover. To install the printer cable, start by removing the cable cover and the ground screw. Next, plug the cable into the connector on the printer display board and snap the locking rings in place. Now, use the screw to attach the ground wire. Finally, install the cable cover. There are two LEDs that are used to help diagnose problems in the optional features. They are the option adapter LED and the printer display board error light. When the LEDs are on, they can be seen through the vent holes in the options cover. To perform the wrap mode check, turn the power off disconnect the printer cable. Note the position of the line feed dip switch. The dip switch should be in the off position when performing the wrap mode check. Install the wrap plug then turn the machine on. Check the printer display board error light. If the light comes on and then goes off, the printer display board is bad. If the light comes on and stays on, the board is good. Set the line feed dip switch to its original position, plug in the printer cable, and install the cable cover. This completes the wrap mode check.